former X Division champion and number 22 on PWP's Top 25 of 2022, Mike Bailey here, and you are listening to Pro Wrestling Proverbs with Logan and Anthony.
It's pretty surreal to see TNA and WWE working together on a professional wrestling side, because for a long time people like to, take the piss out of TNA, but for a long time TNA was the number 2 company in America, and there was like a week or two where they competed with WWE. But it's surreal on a personal level because within the past year and a half.
Yeah,
we've got to take part in 3 TNA media scrums. The first one with Will Ospreay. It was an online one. The second one with Speedball Mike Bailey and PCO. That was also online. And then the third one in Detroit for the Bound for Glory presser that had Nick Nemeth, Joe Hendry, Frankie Kazarian, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy. And then we were invited to Bound for Glory, where if you watch at certain points, when the cam is facing the opposite side of the hard cam, you'll see your boys there. We're clapping, we're having a good time.
Yeah.
We were getting... I'll admit, I was into it. Seemed that you got into it too. I think the fans helped, because on my left, there was a gentleman that would just yell some funny as shit things. And then to your right, we talked about, there was a mother of, was it the timekeeper?
She was like the ringside director or something like that.
Yeah. So we had like fun people around us. We were right in the middle. It was a good show. I know this will sound like I liked them before, but I've always enjoyed TNA. You can back me up. Whenever there's a big TNA Impact thing, I put it on in the dorm. Mm-hmm. I scrambled so I could find the final deletion. I just think there's always good talent there. Yeah, I know most of them are going to leave and go to WWE or now AEW. And I know that sometimes it's a spot for veterans to go and make a comeback. But it's always fun. As long as there's management and someone behind it that wants to see wrestling succeed, it succeeds. And right now, it shows. My only worry is that eventually WWE will buy TNA. I don't want that to happen. I want TNA to stay its own thing.
What's happening?
Because I know I don't want it to. Because when WWE works with someone, generally it's been good. In the 90s, they did that little partnership with ECW, where ECW got to appear on Raw, and then they also sent talent back and forth, and that helped. It helped bring Al Snow to prominence. He ended up creating the Al Snow character and coming back to WWE with it. It gave people like Furnace and LaFon another spot to show how good of a tag team they are. And it gave some spotlight to individuals that wouldn't necessarily get it. I think that could happen now. I've seen a lot of the comments where it's TNA and NXT. And yes, it is TNA and NXT. But WWE lately has not been afraid to send some of their bigger people to NXT, as long as it makes sense. We've recently seen Bayley there. Bubba Dudley showed up for a match. I believe CM Punk made an appearance recently. Randy Orton. As long as it makes sense, then they will show up. And, it makes so much sense on that level, because the WWE roster is full. It's huge. And I think they have a list of people, both on NXT and on the main roster, who could benefit by showing up in TNA. Authors of Pain, the Alpha Academy, Angel and Umberto, the Street Profits, Apollo, Ashante and Cedric, Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, Carlito, LWO without Ray, Dirty Dom, JD McDonough, Chance and Carter, Lexus King, R-Truth, Uncle Howdy, even The Miz. if you know about the WWE ECW partnership, Jerry Lawler showed up and was anti ECW. I think The Miz would be perfect in that role as the anti TNA guy since he's always been with WWE.
Yeah.
He could bring up how all his friends end up going to TNA, and he looks down on them, which it's not wrong. Morrison went there, Ziggler, Ryder, Cody.
All my loser friends went there when they couldn't make it here.
And I mentioned R-Truth, and I don't want to say it. Casual fans probably don't realize it. He was the second TNA heavyweight champion when it was NWA TNA. He beat Ken Shamrock for the title. I think it would be hilarious for R-Truth to show up in like a heavyweight title gauntlet, win the match, win the title, and when they hand him the title, he could have the microphone and go, "I thought I was winning the Royal Rumble." Or on the flip side, it's like, "Oh, Ron Killings is in TNA," and he goes, "No, I'm R-Truth. Ron Killings is my cousin." Just, there's ways to work it. But the rest of the people on that list, it's not that they're bad, it would just give them another another experience within wrestling. And someone like Dirty Dom could shoot to the top of TNA and then come back to WWE. And besides that, I mean, there's so much overlap of TNA to WWE and vice versa. So on the TNA roster, counting backstage people, the following have worked with WWE. Josh Matthews, Lance Storm, Nick Nemeth, The Hardys, AJ Francis, Ash by Elegance, Brian Myers, Eric Young, Kazarian, Gail Kim, Johnny Curtis, Kashido, The Laredo Kid, Lee Young Lee, Matt Cardona, Matthew Reinbold, Mustafa Ali, Sami Callihan, Santino, Steve Macklin, Tommy Dreamer, Tom Hannafin, Trent Seven, Trey Miguel, Zia Brookside, Zachary Wentz, Christy Hemme, and D'Lo Brown. The following within the WWE network have already worked for TNA. Gallows, Anderson, Mr. Stone, Booker, and that's the NXT people. Then if you move outside of that, AJ Styles, Adam Pearce, Jillian Sabin, Bubba Dudley, Cody, Punk, McIntyre, Gargano, LA Knight, Mitchin, Naomi, Nick Aldis, Penta, R-Truth, Shawn Spears, Selena, Xavier Woods, Devon. You've got DDP under Legends deal, Hogan under Legends deal, Jimmy Hart under Legends deal, Kevin Nash under Legends deal, Angle and Foley under Legends deal, the Steiners under Legends deals, Luger, Rob Van Dam, and Sean Waltman under Legends deals, Karrion Kross, and Ethan Page. There's a lot of overlap, and I think that's important because I think the one thing that stayed here in the Triple H era is they want you to be able to do a WWE style. Maybe not necessarily promo style, because we've seen with Penta. I guess that's another one now that he's signed with them. Penta was actually TNA heavyweight champion for a while. But you don't have to have the promo style, but they want you to be able to, have your entrance and be able to wrestle a WWE style. With all that overlap, you wouldn't really have to teach anyone. Mm-hmm. So, like, we're recording this the day of the Rumble. Matt Cardona shows up. It's not like Triple H is going to have to give him a walkthrough the morning of, and, hey, hard cam's here.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, here's this.
Look at the camera over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this partnership will also help because I've always been one in all sports. Your locker room should have the veterans in it, and I kind of liked that about the original WWE CW. I've liked that because TNA's always done it, and this will help NXT dramatically. Because I mean, say you're a tag team on the up and up, and you're told, "Hey, you're fighting the Hardys tonight." Like, that's going to be such a morale boost. That's going to be such a learning experience. Or, hey, we're going to do a feud with you and Cardona. Yeah, Matt Cardona, the guy that's been dominating the indies lately. We're going to have you do a feud with him on NXT. It's just, there's so much potential. And we talked about it on our initial TNA Forbidden Door podcast. WWE seems to be doing everything right. I don't want to spend a lot of time saying what AEW did was wrong, but having how they traded the TNA title and not having Omega lose it to a true TNA guy. And then that pretty much being the only partnership didn't really help TNA. Luckily, TNA was in a good place, so didn't really damage them either. So far, everything I've seen with this, the NXT starts showing up in TNA, the TNA starts showing up in NXT. The past couple Rumbles where the TNA Women's Champion has shown up, and even last year we got Naomi to show up. This year, with rumors of, Joe Hendry, Nick Nemeth, the Hardys, Masha Slamovich.
Wait, did you say Joe Hendry?
Joe Hendry.
I believe in Joe Hendry.
Even if he doesn't show up at the Rumble, I think his appearance on NXT helped him with a global audience.
Yeah.
Because just that little bit and the interaction with Shawn Michaels definitely helped his career. And a lot of people online did not like this announcement. But I haven't seen anything wrong with it. It seems they're treating TNA with respect. And, it's got to help, too, right? You count some backstage people in WWE. Gregory Helms, Abyss, Robert Roode. They've all worked with TNA. So there's a lot, like I said, there's so much overlap. There's so much you could do. I do find it a little funny. We've talked about it before, how it was rumored Tony Khan wanted, Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys, and then because of the Hardys issues, didn't go through with it, and then didn't end up using the Hardys a lot. Obviously, they're not going to get Edge and Christian, but there's been a lot of back and forth with Bubba Ray Dudley and Matt Hardy on Twitter. Could you imagine if this ended, like, a Dudley-Hardy final match ended up happening in a WWE ring because of a WWE TNA partnership?
That'd be crazy.
There's so much that can be done. At the time it was announced.
So would they do it in NXT, or would that be a PLE type match?
I think it might be announced at NXT, and there might be build up at NXT, but then I think it would be at a PLE. Because that was the other thing. Yes, it's an NXT TNA partnership, but it was mentioned that PLEs could be involved, which I think makes sense. I think the big pay-per-views should have an NXT heavyweight title match. Why not? Should have an NXT women's title match. Should have NXT tag title. Maybe have a women's team from NXT challenge for the women's tag titles. A lot they could do. And just the matchups that we could already have are insane. Moose and Obafemi. You have Tessa Blanchard and Masha Slamovich on the TNA side. They could go Julia, Steph Vikander, and Roxanne Perez, and now Jordan Grace. TNA also has Hammerstone and Nick Nemeth that could go up against the likes of Charlie Dempsey, who seems to be getting a big push right now, or Trick Williams. The one I'm the most excited for is when eventually the North comes together. Ethan Page from NXT, Josh Alexander from TNA. At one point, these guys were the longest reigning TNA Tag Team Champions. They had a great tag team career together, and I'm excited for either the eventual match, now that they're both just the rocket strapped to their back, or they could team back up. I don't see any negatives with this yet. And normally, I'll be the first to try and come up with a negative for something. I think we both do. We did it with the. I didn't go as hard on it, but we did it with the Y6. We did it when The Rock came back again, and people thought he was back, not full time, but more than he has been. Trying to think of other examples. The Fiend debuting. Yeah. I think we've got quite a bit of examples. I know we were a little worried when Punk came back. That seemed to work out. It almost seems, although it's a laughing point, but the Triple H regime seems to be doing a good job when bringing in outside parties. or parties that were once wronged by the company.
I'm excited to see what this TNA NXT partnership develops into. Kind of already seeing it now, but also kind of because I remember a couple weeks ago we were talking that what will TNA do, because I know people like Jordan Grace are leaving. Joe Hendry his contract was supposedly coming up, and seeing all these people that they just like developed in the stars are going to be on their way out. But now it seems they can kind of have it both ways. These guys can stay in TNA, where they have, where they're the top guys and ladies at that company, but then still work and have the bigger platform that WWE provides. But it should be noted that I do believe that Jordan Grace is probably signed to WWE. I don't think she's going to stick around in NXT. I think she's destined for main roster. I think certain somebody got his eyes on her and was like, I like women that look like that. So she's gonna get pushed. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see. There's a lot of the ability to get more TV time in front of different audiences, and plus the TNA NXT thing is such a good base for storytelling that they could use to, like you said, with like the whole thing with the Miz, or do like a TNA type like invasion type deal too. It'd be interesting. I'm excited.
Yeah, the feeder farm system is just to be able to trade back and forth. It reminds me of the territory days. So that way, a mid-card or a lower-card guy, or even a younger guy or gal, they won't get stale doing the same thing in one spot. They can go elsewhere. And now that's why I think having the main roster, NXT and TNA, is definitely going to be helpful. So far, like you said, Jordan Grace more than likely has left. Hendry's contract. Nick Nemeth has admitted he doesn't sign long-term deals, just because he's wrestled for so long. He, always checking his options. I've mentioned Cardona quite a bit. Yes, he's shown up on Ring of Honor, but he's another one of those guys. He'll sign short-term deals with TNA. So far, the only person I've seen that's truly not liked this, and I figured we'd touch on it on this episode, PCO was not happy. The last time we talked about the last time we talked about PCO on this channel, besides a little bit earlier in the episode, we saw him at Bound for Glory. He actually had that match with Cardona, that wicked trash can lid shot as he was trying to do the suicide dive, or the trash can shot, either way. And he was the media champion and some sort of international champion too, international heavyweight champion. And he showed up on GCW, and he destroyed the Impact Digital Media Championship. It was later reported that this was a replica title. He didn't have the real one in his possession, and it was expected he was going to be at the TNA tapings and drop the title, but was not there. I will say, Brett from GCW, the guy that runs it, it's been reported numerous times that they didn't want PCO to go out and badmouth TNA. Like, the championship belt's one thing, but which is smart, and people are wondering why. But doesn't WWE and GCW, like, isn't Brett and Stephanie like friends or something? So it makes sense that you're not wanting PCO to shit on the new talent for WWE. But a lot of people in GCW are saying that PCO did go into business for himself, and it made TNA furious. And I would be too. Yes, Ring of Honor and the Indies helped him, but TNA really brought him even more glory. Let's see. Fightful reported that the belt was a replica. And he was originally intended to lose the belt at the tapings, as I said. The officials reportedly under belief PCO was upset his deal would not be extended and acted out as a result. I also know that PCO, which could be me looking into a little bit, doesn't love the click. So, hearing that the company that you're with and you've kind of helped develop even more is now working with the two figureheads of the click. And you know that realistically, that means anytime X-Pac and Kevin Nash could just show up backstage, show up at NXT taping, probably doesn't give PCO warm and fuzzy feelings.
Nope.
I know he also said he was upset about Scott D'Amore not being brought back, and that the new people heading TNA, they don't know wrestling, and they need to bring Scott back. I haven't seen the new TNA people do anything crazy, except not extend contracts that reportedly Scott had gotten signed, and it was said that they were like blown up contracts to get people to stay in TNA, and that's why you're seeing the PCOs getting upset or certain people not getting extended. And I kind of get that. I've talked about that before when WWE did those mass releases. A lot of them were guys Triple H brought in NXT, signed to a big fat contract because, they were the big guys on the indies or he didn't want to go elsewhere. But then they were just being used as regular guys. I get it. If you're getting that fat contract, you should probably be either a main event player or a merchandise seller. It'll be interesting to see how things go. As far as I know, Tommy Dreamer is still involved as a kind of I guess you'd say, creative in TNA. Gail Kim, Lance Storm, all producer. So nothing truly changed except Scott being gone. But like you said, I'm excited to see about this TNA partnership. I've wanted something like this to happen for a long time. I remember on games and with my figures, I would do, like you said, I do a TNA invasion, just because there's so much overlap. I'm just and as I said, we're recording this the day of the Rumble. I think tonight we'll truly see how TNA is perceived.
Yeah.
My dream still have Joe Hendry come out at number 1 or 2 so he can get his full entrance at a WWE PLE as TNA champion. Could happen. Might not happen. My other funny thing that I realized with this is now that TNA and WWE are working together, TNA's got their own Hall of Fame. So, and they've got that video library. So before, you probably didn't see a lot of Sting on WWE TV because it felt like, he slighted them, that kind of thing. Probably going to see some Sting in some video libraries now because he's a big part of TNA. Or Jeff Jarrett right now in his attempt at a main event run in AEW. Big part of TNA. It's just, I'm curious to see what happens. I'm really excited for the new WWE 2K game because I think there's a chance we see some sort of TNA representation in that. And I'm curious.
Ooh, TNA DLC pack.
I'm thinking. I'm also wondering if we're going to see some TNA figures, like a couple one-offs. Who knows? We'll have to see. I am very positive with this partnership. I don't think it's going to be all doom and gloom. I didn't want the AEW one to be all doom and gloom. As I said, I really like TNA. I really liked Ring of Honor. I don't want TNA to go the way of Ring of Honor. I don't want it to disappear and just be a video library. I want it to continue to be a ground where people can cross the line, as TNA used to say. And who knows? Maybe you'll see us at some more future TNA events.
Hopefully. Maybe they're not too big for us now.
Yeah, that was my worry too. It seems like everyone that we work with they grow faster than we do.
That's all right.
We're the little engine that could, and they're like Amtrak's. They just zoom right by. But at least we could sit in our rocking chairs when we're old and be like, hey.
They're the trolley, and we're the people strapped to the railroad.
Yep.
It's all right.
We see him coming, and we're like, you know what, that'd be cool to work with. And then it gets closer, and we're like, oh no.
Oh.
But yeah, this is again, and I've said it on some of or a couple comments on our posts. This is a great time to be a wrestling fan. Japan's business is booming. Mexico's business is booming. The Indies are booming. WWE and TNA partnership. NXT is starting to get its footing again. AEW is getting its streaming deal. Ring of Honor is supposedly getting a deal. If you say that there's something in wrestling, like if there is nothing for you in pro wrestling,
You just hate wrestling.
probably should just, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. People just want to complain, and that's okay.
Yep, I'm not going to complain tonight. After this, we're going to get our Tormina's 24-inch pizza from the Waverly Road Tormina's here in Lansing. And we're gonna hunker down and get ready for the Royal Rumble and the first appearance of TNA on a premium live event now that they are working officially with the WWE.